This is the foldable part of our quadratic formula lesson. You want to find your sheet that has the part down here on the bottom that says quadratic formula, and then these boxes here at the top that say word problems. And what we're going to do is we're going to cut along this dotted line right here. You want to save this piece for the lesson on word problems, so put it somewhere safe. But for now, we are just going to use this piece of paper right here. So what I want to do is I'm going to take this piece of paper and I'm going to fold it in half lengthwise. So it's going to be easier if I flip it upside down. I want those dotted lines to be on the top. And I'm going to flip this up. Let's see if I zoom in a little, maybe it might not be so bright. I'm going to fold it like this. So that it looks like that. And then along the dotted lines here, we're going to just make a little snip with our scissors. And the point of this part of the foldable is to help us figure out what to do when we get different types of answers with our quadratic formula. So when you're working with the quadratic formula, you have that square root and you get different numbers underneath the square root. And we want to look at what those different numbers mean. Okay, so there's three possibilities that we could get. We could get a square root that has just a regular number underneath, like 25 or 17 or 342. Okay, we could get a square root that has a 0 underneath. And we can also get a square root that has a negative number underneath. Okay, so what I'm going to do is we're going to put up here at the top, we're going to say types of solutions. From the quadratic formula. Now, if you can't fit that all on, just say types of solutions, and that would be perfectly fine. Okay. So when we're using the quadratic formula, if we end up with a number underneath our square root, like 16, right, we're going to have plus or minus the square root of that number. So it actually means that we end up with two different answers. So that's going to give me two solutions And on a graph, two solutions really means that our quadratic has two x-intercepts. Now inside here, I'm going to put solution and graph. Okay. If we have a square root of 0, when we're doing the quadratic formula, if we add and subtract 0, we actually just get the exact same answer. So this is only going to give me one solution. And on a graph, one solution means it only has one x-intercept. So how do you draw a parabola with only one x-intercept? Well, that x-intercept is going to have to be the vertex of the parabola so that it only crosses in one place. And it could be right side up or it could be upside down, but it just touches once at the vertex. So I'm going to say one x-intercept at the vertex. Now our last one is what happens when we have a number under the square root that is negative. And when you use your calculator, if you try to do the square root of a negative number, so let's say I do negative 10, and I try to do the square root of that, my calculator gives me an error. And that's because there is no real solution to the square root of a negative number. Now there are things called imaginary answers, but we're not ready to talk about that until grade 12. So we're just going to say if you get a square root of a negative number, I cannot calculate it, so there is no solution. Which means there are no answers, which means there are no x-intercepts. So how does a graph look if it has no x-intercepts? It means that it's somewhere above or below the x-axis and it's pointing away from the x-axis. So this would have no x-intercepts. And that's our foldable for the different types of solutions you can get from the quadratic formula. You just need to stick that onto your note.